If you are someone who's even paid a little attention to NASCAR over the last 10 to 20 years, you'll see a story that many people over and over again online talk about. A story of how a once great sport lost tons and tons of people watching and couldn't get out of its own way to do so. And I understand if that is the running storyline that people have with NASCAR. But the deal is that there's a lot more in there than just the basic story. It's not as simple, it's much more complicated, honestly, than people would like to say. And the news of the ratings over both the 2022 season as well as the 2022 finale only continue to make it even more maddening for those who were in charge of NASCAR. This was reported by Adam Stern earlier today. NBC earned a 1.86 rating and 3.213 million viewers for Sunday's NASCAR Championship, compared to a 1.95 rating and 3.214 million viewers from last year. Basically, viewership was flat year to year, though up from 2020, and the ratings were down 6% for the finale compared to 2021's. Basically, it's difficult for NASCAR right now because last week they had an insanely viral clip of Ross Chastain doing what has now been dubbed the Hail Melon and making a basically death-defying move. But it hasn't equated into viewers, or if it did, it saved this year's finale from being an absolute mess when it came to viewers. And I have to wonder, what would this race have been without the Hail Melon? Would we be seeing under 3 million viewers? Would the ratings have gone down 30%? Yeah, one viral clip isn't going to bring everybody in. But even if it's bringing in 0.1% of the people that saw it, then it's going to bring in a good amount of people. And I think that it probably did. They just got served a horrible race. Because that's basically what this was. When you follow up such a great moment for the sport as Ross Chastain's Hail Melon with basically an aero slogfest, this is something that's not going to help the growth of the sport. And overall, when you look at the ratings this past year, the playoffs have basically been flat with 2021 and 2020. There is no growth in the last 10 races of the season for the last 3 seasons. There is no hype for it. Many people had said, even without the tragic news of Coy Gibbs passing away, that this didn't feel like a championship race. This just felt like another ordinary race. There was no hype. There was no grand stage the way that there used to be. It was just another event, except this one ultimately crowned a champion. And I will say this, a lot of people will say, well, the NFL gets a lot of the viewers, and that's true, but you can't use the NFL as an excuse this week. You can't use the channel either, because this is on big NBC, and I'm going to say you can't use the NFL as an excuse because NFL ratings this week compared to the same week last year were actually incredibly down based on metrics. So there's no real excuse here. The biggest competitor seemed to have been kneecapped for a week, and you couldn't capitalize as a sport. USA Network also saw an increase in ratings before the playoffs and overall was up 1%, even though it was down about 20% in its playoff races. A lot of people want to use USA Network as an excuse for why people didn't watch the playoffs, but the reason people didn't watch the playoffs might not be because of the channel. The channel has more people subscribed to it than NBC Sports Network, and the channel itself brought in more viewers in the summer races when NASCAR is usually down than it has for many years in the past. The word I would associate with the playoffs right now is apathy. There's apathy for NASCAR's postseason because there's nothing really of value anymore. They've changed it so much that you know that eventually if this doesn't work, they're going to change it again. And the way that it's such a crapshoot really takes away the gravity of the championship itself. And in my opinion, makes qualifying for the championship 4 more important than actually winning the damn thing because it is such a crapshoot. And if somebody locks in their place 3 weeks early, like Joey Logano, they have an unfair advantage on the rest of the field. To me, this doesn't mean the sport's dying, but it means the sport is in serious trouble. But it doesn't mean that, in general, it's in a bad state. I know those two contradict each other, but so too do the ratings between the playoffs and the NASCAR season itself. Austin Konensky had tweeted out earlier today as well, NASCAR's official viewership for 2022's season is at its highest since the 2018 season. 114 million had watched in total in 2022, averaging just over 3 million a race. They have not had an average of over 3 million a race since 2018. NASCAR's regular seasons also have been much more viewed than the seasons overall. With the press they try and gain has been insane when you look at the playoffs. Between 2018 and 2022, NASCAR's regular season is 7 to 12% more viewed than the entire season average, which includes the playoffs. Interest is there earlier in the season for NASCAR. People are tuning in, but they're not sticking around. And the solution, in my opinion, isn't totally obvious. It's going to be difficult no matter which way they go. Yes, you can get rid of the playoffs. I personally would love that. But since 2013, NASCAR's lost 48% of its season-wide audience and 49% of its playoff audience. Since 2003, NASCAR's lost 62% of the total audience and 63% of the last 10 races audience. What I'm getting at is those fans that watched a full season points format and liked it, or watched for a chase format and liked it. Many of those have been run off by the elimination style chase and playoffs. And many of those fans aren't going to come back. NASCAR's burned too many bridges and changing too much stuff. And nowadays, a lot of current fans, especially ones who have come in since 2017, love the playoffs. And you risk alienating any new fans you've made or any fans who have adapted to what you've changed. So, what is the solution? Because I think NASCAR's in a no-win scenario here. My solution is this. If you have to keep the playoffs, shorten them. People tune out for the start of the playoffs. One, because a lot of fans don't like the playoffs, but two, because the opening round and a half of the playoffs is honestly just busy work that nobody really wants to watch. Who cares if Austin Dillon barely qualifies in at Daytona just so he can get eliminated 3 weeks later and make no impact on the season? So, shorten the playoffs to 7 races. 2 rounds, getting your final 4 if you want to keep it that way. The top 12 in points, the best 12 teams, qualify. Better teams with less busy work means that you get right to the point, similar to what the NFL playoffs do. No win and you're in also for the next round. Maybe some more points for wins, and that's something you can change overall, but no win and you're in so that a team can't get an unfair advantage into the next round or championship race. The lull of the first 4 playoff races is cut as you keep the regular season going. You have the Bristol night race as your cutoff before the playoffs this time. That way it keeps that drama, but at the same time has a bit more gravity, honestly, with the season. Many fans do tune out for the playoffs or lose interest in the round of 16 and 12 when there's no value drivers getting lost before the race at Talladega. So a shorter playoff cuts down on everything that's really been a big problem for NASCAR. Having a higher watch regular season, it has to be a wake-up call that the playoffs aren't working as they are now, and if you can fine-tune them correctly, maybe you can capitalize the most way possible. But the thing is, if a chaser playoff format hasn't helped in the last 6 to 10 years for playoffs and 18 years in general, who's to say it's going to help now? Excitement was up earlier this year. Fox races, for instance, were up 15% this year over last year in viewership, even with the lowest watch scheduled Daytona 500 ever. You need to give people who are getting excited early a reason to watch after the early season hype dies down. And call me old school, call me someone who's just a broken record, but a season-long points format does that. Your storylines that you get early in the season will matter much more later in the season than it would with a playoff, where basically, if your driver wins in the first 10 races, you don't have to watch the entire summer. But that's just my take. I think that there's plenty of things you can do, but I'm just one person. Now, I want to pass it on to you. 1, why do you think the fans give so much apathy for the playoffs? Also, what do you think about NASCAR being more watched than it has in the last 5 years? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. To all my channel members, thank you so much for your support of this channel. So until next time, have a good one.